Welcome to day 18 of the 30-day video challenge, the story of me. This morning in the shower, I was reminded of a interesting tale from my mid-20s that felt like a perfect opportunity to share. So I thought of a couple possible titles, but I'm going to go with I Wish I Was a Fly on the Wall. And what had happened is I was living in Madison Heights in my first house and living alone at the time. And this was when I was working for the organization that I had talked about in a previous video. And I was in charge of the local elementary school system where we had about 25 different elementary schools where the instructors would go in and teach classes to the kids and then use that as a feeder to our main schools. So I had, being in charge of that, I was responsible for getting all the flyers to the schools. And at the time, we had to divide the flyers by school, then by class. So I had probably at the time 2,000 flyers all over my living room, starting to sort them out by school and then by class. Well, I went shopping one morning, and as I was coming home, a little bit of a surprise. I lived in Madison Heights, it was a detached garage. So as you come up the driveway to go into the garage, the house is on the left. So something unusual caught my eye as I was pulling up, and that was that the back door was open. And I can think of maybe 3 times in my entire life that I have ever left a back door not only unlocked, but wide open. So right away, that was kind of a red flag. So I parked the car and jumped out. And as I walked in the house, I heard a huge bang from the front of the house. And it was a open floor plan, so I was able to see straight to the front. And there's Yuki. She likes to guard us against those dangerous leaves that are always blowing in front of the yard. So I saw as I heard the explosion, I was able to see a person leaving out the front door in quite a hurry. So needless to say, it didn't take but a second for me to take off in pursuit. So as I turned the corner and headed outside, I noticed 2 individuals, running up the street. So took off after them. One went left, one went right. I had to make a split-second decision. I took the guy on the right. So I'm chasing him. He curved back into the neighbor's house about 3 houses up. And back then in Madison Heights, all of the houses, we had fences in the backyard. And so this neighbor particularly had just a little cyclone fence. So it was pretty easy to hop and continue pursuit with him. But what this kid didn't know was on the back side of all of our houses, it opened up to a general field. So we had pretty much everybody had put up a privacy fence because there weren't any neighbors immediately behind. So he suddenly hit the privacy fence, which was a good 6 feet tall, and realized pretty quickly that he wasn't going to get over it. Well, I'm sprinting at him, full tilt. And about 20 feet away, he quickly spins around and puts his hands up, and he's like, all right, yep, I give up. Well, full tilt, basically tackled him into the fence and threw him down on the ground and was ready just to start pulverizing him. But cooler heads prevailed, and I'm like, damn right, you give up. And so I, picked him up back off his back, and at that point he had pretty much completely given up and was just starting to walk towards the street with me. And so again, this was 25 plus years ago, so we didn't have cell phones like we did today. So I was taking him back to my house so that I could call the police. And as we're coming up the driveway, I guess another part of the story was, when I grew up, pretty much we could tell you every person's house, their name, who lived in the house, and would wave to them as they drive up and down the street. I have not found those subdivisions, since my childhood. So in this particular neighborhood, it was safe and everybody was pretty much friendly, but they kept to themselves. From my experience, there really wasn't any interaction. I had never met the person or the people in the house 3 houses up. As we're walking up from the backyard to the gentleman's driveway, suddenly a gentleman, probably in his late 60s, turns the corner from the front of the house with a gun in hand. Stop it. And so he looks, and suddenly he's like, the classic, what the hell are you guys doing on my property? So I took a step back and put my hands up, and I said, sir, I live 3 houses down. I just caught this guy in my house breaking into it. Could you please call the police? So suddenly, he mumbling his stuff under his breath and goes back inside. So I sit the kid down on the front porch. And again, at that point, I had pretty much was just finishing up or had just finished my degree in criminal justice. So I've been watching cop shows and lawyer shows for all my life. And I'm like, the only thing you've got left to figure out is if you're going to roll on your friend or not, because I've got you dead to rights. So after about a minute or two, the old guy comes back out and suddenly looks at me and says, well, the police are on their way. Before they get here, do you want me to shoot him? I'm like, well, no, sir, that won't be necessary. We've got him. He's given up. So, no thanks. That definitely caught me off guard. So the police show up, explain what happened. They take him into custody and off they go. So the fly on the wall was, I wonder what they were thinking when they broke into the house and they found thousands of karate flyers on the floor and throughout the living room. And then number 2, what were they thinking when they heard me come home? So the couple of lessons that I had learned from this story, the first one was about the media and that the media spins content. And until then, I had never experienced it before or heard about it before. So I just always took, what you read in the paper, what you hear on the news is what happened. So about a week or 2 later, the newspaper comes out and there's a little section about neighborhood news or crime watch or that type of thing. And the story basically goes and says, local resident assists police in apprehending, burglar. And I'm looking at that going, that's not what happened at all. And so that's my first experience with learning that newspapers and the news in general will spin content. And so as I started reading and learning more, I started to learn why that, number one, that the government, the city governments, our government, everything, all of those, and the people in charge want the citizens to feel safe. And so in order to do that, they will spin content to make it seem more favorable. And so this kind of ties back into what I've talked about in previous videos of right is wrong is wrong. It didn't bother me that they didn't give me credit. I didn't care if they didn't write the story at all. What bothered me was they were telling the story wrong, and wrong is wrong. And so, that irritated me for a little while, but obviously I got over that. And as I've grown older, it's like, all right, that's how it is. And the other portion of this was basically the judicial system. And one day, a couple weeks later, the court clerk calls and says, the person's trial coming up. And so, is there anything you want the judge to know? One part I forgot. The 2 kids were high schoolers, skipping school, looking for trouble, and they found it. And unfortunately, they found it in the wrong house with me. So they were juveniles. So there was juvenile system, juvenile court. And so the court clerk calls and says, is there anything you want the judge to consider in the processing? And I'm like, yes. They broke a door that was a steel door and cost me about $200. And it cost me another $200 or $300 to have it repaired and fixed that day because I had to be able to go to work. So I want them to pay me back today. Well, the judge doesn't have the authority to do that. Is there anything else that he should know? I said, well, okay, since he's a juvenile, the parents are going to be there. Have the parents pay me. Well, the judge doesn't have that authority. He can't make the parents pay for a child's discretions or trouble that they get into. Okay. Well, I'm out $400, $500 in one day because of what this kid did. And you're telling me that you can't make them pay me back for this. Why are you calling me? And so in short, it basically, this is just the opportunity for me to feel better, to be able to express myself to the judge before he considers sentencing. I'm like, I don't need you to understand how I feel. I want my money back. I shouldn't have to pay out of pocket because of this kid's damage he did to my property. Yeah, but the judge can't do that. So that was unfortunate. And but what the judge was able to do was he was able to put in an order for the kid to pay me back. And I said, okay, great. So that'll be good. Now, when do I get that money? Well, we can't make him pay it. So it will just be a matter of whenever he pays the court will send you the money. Okay, goodbye. There's no point to this phone call. So needless to say, I did receive a payment of $10. Never saw another penny. So I was out hundreds and got $10 back because of this kid's behavior. And he got written up for juvie. I don't think he spent any time. He was released to his parents, and that was that. So it was pretty disheartening to hear that there was really nothing that the judge could do about this because the kid was a juvenile. So those are my two big stories about that the newspaper spin stories, and that there's not a whole lot that the legal system can do once it comes to repairing the damage done. So my question to you is, well, what do you think the kids were thinking? Number one, when they broke into the house and saw all the karate flyers, and number two, when they heard me come home, because I can pretty much tell you what the kid was thinking when I caught him and threw him up against the fence. Yeah, that one was pretty easy to figure out. But what do you think? What do you think of the first couple thoughts I went through their head? Go ahead and put them in the comments below, and I'll be excited to hear your thoughts. And that's what's going on today. I'll talk to you tomorrow.